Welcome to Brain Vision.
One way to measure the competitiveness of an industry is to use the Herfindahl-Hirschman Index. So what that is, I'm going to abbreviate that as HHI. And what that does is you add up the squared number of market share for each firm in that industry, right? So let's say that you have firm 1 has a share S, let's say S1, and you square that. Firm 2 has a share S2, square that. And then you add up all the squares for each firm. And the higher the HHI, the less competitive an industry is. That means that the shares are more concentrated within a few leading controlling firms rather than more evenly distributed among more competitive firms. Right, so let's look at an example to get an idea of how these numbers work. So let's say in one industry, we have 10 different firms, and each of them have a market share of 10%. So each of them control 10% of the market. So what you would do is you would square each of that. So you have 10 squared plus 10 squared, on and on. So basically, if you do 10 times 10 squared, you'll have 10 different firms, right? And what you're going to get is the HHI is 1,000. Now, let's compare that to a market where there are only 2 firms, and one of them has a market share of 80%. So this is a huge firm. They control a lot of this market. And then the other firm has a share of 20%. So you would add up the score of both of these shares, and what you would get is 6,800. Now that's a lot larger than the one where we have a lot more firms with less market power. Right, so the higher we go on this index, the less competitive the industry is, and the more we should be concerned about stopping monopolies, doing antitrust policy, and things like that. An example of some highly competitive industries would definitely be the auto market, right? Cars, when you go to shop, you have a lot of different options, many different makes and models. They're all a little bit different, and they have to keep competing to get you to come back, right? Another industry might be higher education in the US, right? We have so many different universities and colleges, and they all offer different things at different prices, and they have to compete to get you to come to their university.